This video and this series is for those of you looking to start tying your own flies, but just don't know where to start. I'm Tyler Olrogue. I'm a professional fly fishing guide. I'm also a member of the U.S. National Fly Fishing Team. Whether it's for my next fly fishing competition or making sure I have enough of the right fly in my box for my clients the next day, I spend hours and hours at my fly tying vise. I tie thousands of flies every single year, and we're going to help you get started on your fly tying journey. In this first episode of the series, I want to start at ground zero. I'm going to assume that you know absolutely nothing about tying flies or fly tying, and we're just going to break down some of the basic anatomy of a vise and how each vise works, kind of look at some of the basic functions and parts. I'm also going to go through some of the essential tools that you need to get started. And lastly, I'm going to help you pick out your very first fly tying vise. So just to start here, I just want to go through a very simple vise. This is one of my very first vices. I believe you can still pick these up at Cabela's or Sportsman's Warehouse or Bass Pro. This is about as simple as it gets. I think it really only has 5 parts to it. The first just being this base right here, just kind of a heavy flat base that you can just set on any flat surface. And I prefer this over a C-clamp, which I will show you here in a minute. But because you can just take this and you can just kind of put it on any flat surface. And you know, back in the day when we were young and wild and free, and we would, you know, sleep in our cars and stuff before competitions, we could just put this on some sort of flat surface and we'd be in our cars at night tying flies because we were nuts. But so you have this nice pedestal vase, which I use on my own personal vise. And then you have this long extension here, which is just called the stem. Probably won't bring that up too much, but sometimes I do kind of rest my hand against the stem to kind of steady during certain tying techniques. So this is called the stem. And then you have this piece here. This is called the lever. This is how your jaws get tightened around a hook. So when they're open, they're loose. And then when you engage that lever and kind of close it, you'll close the jaws onto your hook. And I jumped ahead and I said the word jaws. The jaws are this piece here at the tip where you're actually going to put the hook into the vise. The jaws are what secure the hook, what holds the hook in place. And then the very last piece is this kind of long shafted section here between the lever and the jaws. This on this vise is called the head, and you'll rotate that head either way in order to loosen or tighten the jaws based on how thick the hook is. This is a very good vise to get started with. It's simple. It's not complicated. This would be a great vise for you to start off with. Then, you know, I've used a few different vices over the years. So I started off with that very simple guy. I think I've used an Anvil Apex after that. And then the last, 3-4 years, I've been using this Renzetti Traveler, this rotary vise. Rotary just meaning I can rotate this all the way around. This will spin all the way around and my hook will actually stay level the entire time. So this is my personal vise. This is the one I've been using for the last 3-4 years. Again, very quickly, you'll notice I have the pedestal base on it right here. And then you'll notice I have this little basket guy here. This is just a waste basket that gets attached to the stem. And that's just so my materials don't go everywhere and I have a messy room all the time, even though my fly tying stuff is normally a disaster. But this helps cut down on the waste mess and all that jazz. The jaws on my vise are right here. They're kind of angled up like this, so when it rotates all the way around, and then you'll see my lever function is right actually attached to my jaws, just like that. So the one thing I didn't talk about on the basic vise, and that's because I didn't know this when I first got my first vise, is that these springs, so there'll be a spring around the head of your vise, and so I just took it off because I didn't know what it was, and that's actually a material clip. So if you're tying a fly and you have wire or you have tinsel that gets tied on and gets put on at the end of the fly, you'll actually store it right here in this material clip. So when you get your first vise and you see that little spring, leave it on. It's supposed to be there. Learn from my mistakes, leave that guy on there. So, and then you'll actually tighten the jaws on this vise with this little tension screw right here. And then I actually have another tension screw here that determines how loose this is when it comes around, what kind of resistance it has to rotate my vise around. And then the very last piece is this little arm here that I can move kind of in and out. This is called a cradle. And what that is for is that is where I will place my thread. So if I'm wrapping wire or if I'm wrapping some sort of tinsel on a Paragon, I will store my thread there. I will kind of hold my wire or my material up, and I will just kind of move it forward as I take my other hand and I may let my vise make the twists for me, or kind of make the turns for me. So that's my personal vise. The very last one I want to show you, this is my father's vise. This is a Regal vise. This is a very, very nice vise. I don't know, I just don't use it. It doesn't have a cradle attached to it. It also has a C-clamp. So all that means is rather than just setting it on to any flat surface, you need something that has kind of an overhang, or something that you can take this C-clamp and attach it to. And I'm not going to get too much into this one. This one does do the full rotary as well. Kind of the way you tighten, the way you kind of put the hook in is different here. You have to kind of pull this lever, and then the tension screw is like right here. I don't know too much about this vise personally, but I can kind of go into depth kind of on the other two. Probably the most important tool is going to be the bobbin, and that's just simply because you can't tie a fly without thread. You're going to start with the thread, you're going to end with the thread, and the thread's going to hold absolutely everything in place. So you're going to need a bobbin to kind of help you manage and tie that thread onto a hook. So it's going to look like this. This is a bobbin that doesn't have any thread on it. This is a very simple one with a kind of a ceramic tip. This is the style that I use most often. So just to get started, you're going to take the bottom here. You kind of have these kind of fattened ends that kind of pull apart. And so you're going to pull that apart, and your thread is going to have a hole on either end. And you're just going to pull that apart and put your thread right between that, just like so. So you can take your thread and just put it into the bottom end of the stem here and just kind of push it in a little ways and suck it through, and that's how you get your thread all the way through. There's also a tool for this. You can use a bobbin threader, and you'll take that threader and you'll insert it through the top, and a little loop will come out the bottom. And you're just going to take your thread, push it right through that loop, pull it through all the way, and then take the top of the threader, pull it out, and your thread will come out the top that way as well. So bobbin, probably the most important tool. And then also you're going to need something to kind of cut materials, cut your thread, scissors. Any pair of scissors will do to start. These guys I have now are pretty fancy and pretty expensive, and I do love them, and they make my tying experience so much more enjoyable, especially while I'm trying to kind of get close, tight cuts on Paragons or little tiny flies. But just any pair of scissors from any kit will kind of do to start, even just basic craft scissors from Walmart or anything like that. We'll get the job done to start. I do recommend having 2 pairs of scissors, one separately for wire, just because the wire is tough and it dulls your scissors very quickly. And as we get through the series, I will show you some techniques to kind of prevent or kind of make it so you don't need to cut your wire with scissors. But to start, I would have 2 sets. One that you can dull up and cut on wire, and another that you can keep nice and sharp to get nice tight cuts on your thread, on materials, just so your flies look a little cleaner. Another tool that I recommend having for a couple of different reasons are a pair of hackle pliers. And the first one is like not even what they're designed for, but just to kind of hold materials on your desk. I can't tell you how many times I've been working with very fine wire or flash or floss or even like peacock herl or just small fibers that you set down on your desk, and they're light, they can be blown away easily. You can knock them off your desk with your sleeve. But just to take those hackle pliers, open them up, place the materials between the jaws, and then just set that material in the jaws onto the desk to kind of hold it for you so that you know where it is. And then the other is actually what it's designed for, is for when you're palmering hackle or when you're wrapping hackle around the hook shank. to actually grab that hackle with the pliers, or even wire, you could do it with wire as well, to grab that material with the pliers and kind of use that to wrap it around the hook as you kind of progress forward, or you make a collar. Again, this is more so with the simple vise, but you can also use it to hold that material in place while you use the rotary function on your vise as well. The last tool that I recommend having, for me, I use a whip finish tool. Other people use half hitch tools, or like I said, you can just look up how to do it with your fingers if it's really that important to you. I tie a lot of bead-headed flies, and because of that, I like the whip finish tool because it sets my thread right behind the bead, rather than using a half hitch tool and then I have to kind of drag it and seat it behind the bead. But you don't want to tie a fly, especially as you're just starting off. It's not going to be the quickest process. You don't want to spend all that time tying a fly and then you get to the end and you tie the knot improperly and your whole fly comes unraveled in the final step. So a whip finishing tool, very quick, 3-wrap whip finish, kind of push your tool forward, cinch that knot down, and tie that fly off properly. Lastly, let's just do a little bit of shopping together and kind of look at a few different options and see what might work best for you. Now, we are going to do a little bit of online shopping here together just because that's the easiest way for me to do it through YouTube here. I do, of course, believe in supporting your local fly shop, given that I work out of a fly shop. But it is very important to make sure you are getting the right equipment that works for you, the right materials that you need, and all that stuff. And sometimes the best option is to go online. And personally, I do about 50-50, a little bit of each. So no judgment for me, but when it makes sense, I do really like to support local fly shops. All right, guys, let's do a little online shopping together here. So this White River Fly Shop Super AA vise, I do believe is the same as the simple vise that I showed you. This, however, comes with the C-clamp here rather than the actual pedestal base. And if you go ahead and buy the pedestal base, they want to charge you another additional $26 for that pedestal base, which I really don't think is worth it. So you certainly have the option to just leave it as a C-clamp, or I do probably recommend getting this White River Fly Shop Deluxe Fly Tying Kit with the case. This is how I got my simple vise. Me and my brother, when we first started tying flies, our dad got us this one. So we had 2 vices, because I do think our first vise was this guy right here, this little Supreme vise that you can get at J Stocker Fly Fishing. I believe we had one of these, and then just to get a second one so that we could both tie at the same time, plus you get all the tools here. So right now with the vise just being about 17 bucks and the base being about 27 bucks, you're already at $44. And then you get all the tools with it. So this guy comes with a pair of scissors, the threader, 1 bobbin. It's got 2 hackle pliers. These right here, these are half hitch tools. And then you have a bodkin, which helps you clear kind of the eyes out of hooks if you crowd the eyes or you glue your eyes closed. You have the C-clamp option as well. You have a hackle stacker. So kind of with all this, and then you start looking at kind of some of the prices of tools. So like this whip finish here is like $9. Here's the bodkin. That's about, $3.50. The threader is $2. So just kind of when you add in kind of all the little pieces. So like here's a pair of hackle pliers, $5.50. And then you start looking at some of the scissors, like the Dr. Slick scissors are $17, $18. And then that dubbing twister that's in there is like $3.50. So I think just the best bang for your buck is to just go ahead and get this guy, just so you kind of have all the necessary tools. The one thing I will say is this whip finish tool here, I really don't like. It will work. I have used it before. I would recommend just getting one kind of like I have, kind of like this guy right here. Actually, that's exactly like what I have. Or if you really want to, you can learn how to use these half hitch tools, which are pretty easy. But again, if you do tie it with a lot of bead heads, you do kind of have to kind of pull that over top of the bead to make sure it sits really correctly. But then also, you have the case. So if you want to travel with the vise, kind of take it places, or kind of go to tie nights if you're around a fly shop that has tying nights or some sort of club that has tying nights, super easy, convenient to just pack it up in this box here and take it with you. So if you did want to jump like head first fully in, or you're going to have issues kind of wrapping things and you did really want the full rotary feature on your vise, The Peak rotary vise is a pretty popular one. I know a lot of stores and fly shops carry this one. My only real issue with this is the price point. You know, $240 is not cheap by any means. And if you're going to spend $240, I just think you should just jump and just get like a Renzetti, because you can get the Renzetti Traveler C here, the pedestal base, the very basic one, for $240. And then I believe this is the one that I have, the Traveler C here. And I do just like to recommend things that I have personal experience with. I really don't have any personal experience with the Peak rotary vise, and I have, like I said, been using this Renzetti Traveler for the last 3-4 years, and it really just does exactly what I need it to. And I have 3 different vise settings here. Actually, you can't see it in the picture. I didn't show it to you in the video, but there's 3 different vise settings here. So if I do want to tie bigger flies like pike flies or musky flies, I can open up those jaws wider and go ahead and put a bigger hook in the vise. So, but just from personal experience, I know this is a good vise. So if you are going to spend that amount of money, you might as well just kind of upgrade, spend a little bit more, and go ahead and get this guy right here. One other option, I know the TikTok shop has become quite popular lately. If you go into TikTok, you can go ahead and search my profile on TikTok, which you can see here, or you can pull it up if you already have me. And then you can go into my showcase here, and I have kind of picked some different items that I do use personally and that I think would be some good ideas. And I have selected some vices here. So this would be kind of the simple vise. And again, you have to be careful on TikTok shop. There are some good deals and there's some very bad deals. I think this would probably be an example of a bad deal. I believe this is the same vise you can get from Cabela's for like 17 bucks. This is obviously almost double the price. There is this Kingfisher True Rotary vise that is much cheaper than the Peak rotary vise, or obviously my Renzetti. That it does still look like it's decent quality, and it says it comes from a company out of Montana, which, given that I live in Montana these days, obviously I support that. And then I thought this one was kind of a cool find because I did recommend that you have 2 scissors here. This is a fly tying toolkit, where if you just wanted to buy that vise for like 17 bucks and then get these tools here, you do get the 2 pair of scissors, which I do recommend. So you have one to kind of cut wire and other for your regular materials. And then it comes with 4 bobbins, and they're all ceramic bobbins, which if you look on the Cabela's website or kind of look at Dr. Slick, I believe ceramic bobbins go for $10 or more. So just in getting those 4 bobbins, you've kind of already covered the cost of this total kit. But again, my only drawback is this whip finisher. I really don't know why they like those fancy looking whip finishers. Frankly, I'm just not about them. But like I said, you can just buy like the one that I have for $5 or $6, whatever it was, I can't remember. But full disclosure, anything I have here on my showcase, I do earn a commission off of it. So it is an option if you would like to support me in some sort of way and kind of take advantage of some of these deals. If you do order it through my showcase, I will get a little kickback from that. So if you do that, greatly appreciated. If not, no big deal. I'm more worried about getting you set up properly with the equipment that works best for you. Hey guys, thanks so much for watching the video. If you did make it all the way to the end here with me, I do greatly appreciate it. We are going to try to come out with one of these each week until we kind of run out of ideas, run out of questions, or kind of content to share with you guys. So if there is something specifically that you would like to learn, if there's a specific fly that you would like to learn how to tie, or just any general questions that you have, go ahead and drop us a comment in the comment section, and we will certainly take a look at those and try to come up with some ideas and try to answer your questions to the very best of our ability. So we'll see you in the next video, and hopefully between now and then the weather will break and we'll get to do some fishing.